Hey folks, everybody's friend Fromark here once again with part 2 of Knuckles Chaotix. And this time around I'm maneuvering my way through the fancy speed slider zone. And this zone ain't too bad, it's pretty easy to get through as all the zones in Knuckles Chaotix are for the most part. Except for one, but I'll get there next. But yeah, speed slider's pretty cool to get through and the music here is really good, but the music throughout the entire game is good, as the Sonic soundtrack has never let me down. And in fact, this song has been included in my workout playlist plenty of times, as I do spend a considerable amount of time in the gym, and I have an entire playlist dedicated to just Sonic music that I work out to. I mean, we all got what we got. But the goal here is just to zoom through the zone, and Speed Slider is one of the easier zones to maneuver and to just get through pretty quickly, as indicated with the fact that I just got to the end of Act 1, or Level 1. Now, I guess I haven't pointed it out yet, but my introduction to Knuckles Chaotix was pretty much, I want to say it was around 2012 or 2013. I had started digging my teeth into some emulators at the time, and I discovered that you can play Sega 32X games on the Kega Fusion emulator, which is actually how I recorded this. And since I'm keeping things moving along in this playthrough, go ahead and pair up with Charmy B and go through the dreadful Amazing Arena Zone. And I say dreadful because this one's kind of a chore to get through. It just depends on how good you are at Knuckles Chaotix, I guess. But this one's very samey, and this one's very difficult to get through. So everything looks exactly the same. It kind of brings up the where the fuck do I go kind of vibes. But it's certainly not a deal breaker for me. But yeah, this time around I'm playing as Knuckles with partnered up as Charmy B. Now, I will point out that Charmy, if you decide to main as Charmy, he is probably the most broken character in Knuckles Chaotix, as he can fly infinitely, and really that's all you need. We'll ride this fancy spaceship here. But yeah, I don't really care much for Amazing Arena, folks. In fact, I know there's plenty of people that don't really care much for Amazing Arena. But the problem with Amazing Arena is really just some of the enemies are kind of difficult to hit. Some of them can be more of a nuisance than anything, which is one of the few parts of the game where enemies actually show up and become a nuisance. As since the game was rush released, there's not really a whole lot of enemy placement to deal with. But I will say that Amazing Arena's got the worst of it. I will say though that this zone isn't the worst thing in the world, because I mean, the yellow clashes with the pink fairly nicely, and the music here is top notch. And if you'd been paying attention up to this point, you'll notice at the beginning of each act of Amazing Arena, there's a fancy light switch that I gotta hit, and if I do not hit that, it does not count the act as being completed, which means I will have to redo it. Luckily I hit that switch though, so no needs to worry. And just kind of navigate my way through this mess. Another thing about each act of Amazing Arena, though, is there is a mini-boss at the end of each one. Now, you can skip that mini-boss. Sometimes it's hard to do, and sometimes I just end up stumbling upon it, but... Oh, and you see that monitor in the bottom right there that I just passed? It's a monitor that allows you to switch partners. Which, if I were to hit it whenever it was Espio, to switch Charmy into Espio, and so on and so forth. Yeah, there's that flight ability I like out of Charmy. But I wanted to main as Knuckles since this is in fact Knuckles Chaotix. I'll ride this fancy UFO up here and see what's cooking over here, shall I? Now you see that hold thing that shows up, there is typically your other button that is not the jump button, depending on which version you're playing. Yeah, grab that shield even though my partner took it. But yeah, that hold that I'm pressing there, basically that just keeps your partner in place for a second. And there's that fancy character switch monitor that I hit, which turned Charmy into Vector. And I'm fine enough with. And the goal here is to just pretty much make my way up top. And just keep going upwards. And eventually I'll make my way to the end of this mess. But yeah, there are all kinds of different power-ups that are introduced in Knuckles Chaotix. Oh, hang on, I got the nice number. Yeah! But yeah, there's all kinds of power-ups you can get in Knuckles Chaotix. There's the one that makes Knuckles, or whatever character you're maining, it makes them big. Then there's the one that shrinks the characters. And then there's one that swaps the characters. I do believe there are a couple other ones that I may have not have mentioned yet, but we'll get there if we get there. Speaking of getting there, it looks like I've reached the tail end of Act 1. Jump into that special ring as Knuckles. And keep things moving right along. Also, you see you get that extra 10,000 points if you manage to jump into the special ring. But here we got Special Stage 3, folks. This time around, it looks like the goal will be to collect 8 blue sphere. I honestly think these special stages are pretty cool, though. I like the music here, but the music in the entire Knuckles Chaotix is pretty solid. I do hate the fact that this game has never been re-released. I guess technically it was briefly on some service called GameTap in the mid-2000s, which that was a little bit before my time on the internet, as I didn't really start browsing the web until about late 2006, early 2007. But, you know, I just wish that they would re-release this game. There's really no reason why they can't. It's like Sega hates money at this point. Although they were pretty greedy for it in the mid-90s when they were releasing add-on after failed console after failed add-on, but despite all the mess that Sega was in the mid-90s, I still appreciate everything they did. I mean, somebody had to make the mistakes. Nintendo certainly wasn't going to make all those kind of mistakes, but I guess somebody had to pave the way. Unfortunately, the 32X pretty much screwed over the Sega Saturns. Although there are a lot of other things that screwed over the Sega Saturn, like bumping up the release date, not having very many games available, not having a proper Sonic game on the system. And then you had the 32X, which came out like a half a year beforehand, which stole a lot of thunder, and considering that was a failure, I imagine most consumers were like, why should I buy this? And it just started a downward spiral for Sega. But I mean, despite all that, I still enjoy the 32X, and I've got a few games on it, and I really enjoy the Sega Saturn, and I hope eventually I can get around to recording some Sega Saturn games. Cause I will say that is my second favorite system of all time, only behind the Super Nintendo. For some odd reason or another, considering I play the Sega Saturn more at this point. Although the Super Nintendo has a lot more memorable games, that's for sure. Now, if you don't get all the blue sphere that you're supposed to by the time you reach the finish line, it just restarts the segment of the special stage. No need to worry as long as you got plenty of rings. And I try not to make this a habit throughout the playthrough if I can help it. Because I really don't want to repeat over and over again. Unless, of course, I'm commentating, and then sometimes it just happens. Now, this part of the special stage I hadn't navigated yet, but I've already got all the blue sphere I need. And just get that cool and move on to whatever's next. Yeah, looks like that's the end of Special Stage 3. Go ahead and grab that green ring there. And yeah, that's the third Chaos Ring, folks. It's actually a funny story. Maybe a little inappropriate, but Green Ring was actually a nickname that a bunch of people had for this girl I knew in school, because apparently she did some questionable things with a horse. I I guess that's a Catherine the Great reference, although this chick never died or anything. Anyways, regardless of that. Anyways, this is Botanic Base Zone, and this is my personal favorite zone in Knuckles Chaotix. I believe it's supposed to be the first zone in the game, considering it's full of green, lush environment. I'm not really sure what the first zone in Knuckles Chaotix is supposed to be. But anyways, this is probably my favorite song in Knuckles Chaotix. I absolutely love the Botanic Base theme. But yeah, like every other zone or level in Knuckles Chaotix, it's just pretty much a breeze to get through, not a whole lot of enemies to deal with. And yeah, as you see, just mosey on through level 1. And yeah, it looks like I'll get a pretty considerable amount of points out of it. Of course, the points don't matter here. Points are about as meaningful as they are in Whose Line Is It Anyway? But as you see, for Botanic Base Act 1, I just chose one of the robot characters. As you see, there are 2 robots in Knuckles Chaotix. There's Bomb and Heavy. And although it's not really specified, it's believed to be that they betrayed Dr. Eggman and they're helping out the Chaotix. Although, whenever you play as them, they end up being more of a hindrance than anything because they just kind of weigh you or bog you down a little bit. As Bomb is the other robot character that you can partner up as, and if you partner up as him, it just makes for a very slow experience and very difficult experiences. Or wait, no, is this Bomb or is this Heavy? Okay, yeah, wait. My bad. Heavy is the heavier one that bogs it down even more, but Bomb here can be kind of a nuisance as well, considering that if you get hit, if Bomb gets hit and you don't have very many rings, he'll just blow up, hence the name Bomb. And that can be kind of a multi-second distraction. And for special stage number 4 here, all you gotta do is get 10 blue sphere. Technically 20 if you count both segments, but no need to worry, folks. I've got plenty of rings to get the Zhaj done. I think. And just bounce around like an idiot for a couple of minutes. But you gotta do what you gotta do sometimes. And really, any of these special stages, as long as you have enough rings, you don't really gotta worry too much. It looks like everything's gonna go so far so good, and that's all good with me. I just gotta get one more now. And there it is! Yeah. I can go ahead and move on to the end of the special stage. But first I gotta deal with the last little bit here. There's that finish line. Cool! See, that's what, like 4 L's, 5 L's? Kind of hard to tell from the distance I'm watching. I've got my computer hooked up like probably a good 6 or 7 feet away from me. But anyways, that's the 4th Chaos Ring. And keep things moving along. This time around I'm playing as Heavy. And of course I picked the worst possible level to play as Heavy. This is Techno Tower, folks. Now Techno Tower is another one that's pretty easy to get through for the most part. Every act begins with this elevator section here. And the goal is to just keep going up, 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 and away. Now, the reason that Heavy is the worst possible character to play here is because he weighs you down, and this is a very speedy kind of zone to get through, typically. It just makes for a more difficult experience, in my personal opinion. But I don't think it'll be too much of a mess. Now, I do show off every partner character at least once, sometimes multiple times. So this will not be the only time you see Heavy or Bomb. But no need to worry, as I managed to still get through here anyways. Otherwise there wouldn't be a Let's Play if I didn't. But yeah, I couldn't tell you how much time I've dumped into Knuckles Chaotix since I've not only bought the 32X version, but decided I was going to do this Let's Play. It's going to be a little hard to keep things rolling along, as as far as commentary is concerned, because, I mean, there's not tons to talk about with Knuckles Chaotix, folks. There's not a whole lot going on. I mean, the levels are fairly barren, and there's not a lot of enemies, and it's just kind of one of those things. Oof. Looks like I got okay, I got unstuck. I mean, yeah, there's that enemy there, but it looks like I'm just about done here. Yeah, there we go. Go ahead and reach into that next special stage, and that will clear another stage. Stage clear. We got that secret bonus. We've already got over 100,000 points, and that's going to do it for part 2 of Knuckles Chaotix, folks. I hope you tune in for part 3.